There's us. That's not what I wanted. There's us. Oh, this is so difficult sometimes.
Hey, yo.
I'm not going to have our names up. It's fine. Hi, everybody. Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm Joe Fulgham. Joining me, as usual, is Dr. Rob Tarswell. Welcome to Viral Transmissions, episode number 23. We have no guest this week, but a really good roundup of some COVID news, and actually some good news, like some stuff that makes me feel good, which is nice. It's not all good news.
Don't worry, plenty of crap.
Plenty of
crap.
The world. Yeah. Viral Transmissions is supported in part by the BC Humanist Association. Learn more at bchumanist.ca. All right, let's dive into what we got, Rob. We start off with by the numbers. So,
getting bigger.
Yeah, they are getting bigger. So, world infections, we have 23.3 million infected, 809,000 dead due to COVID-19. USA is at 5.68 million infected. That is, we did the math, 1.7% of their population, and 176,000 deaths, and climbing at about 1,000 a day, it seems. That's not
steady at 1,000 a day for 3 weeks.
That's not good. Canada is at 125,000 infected and 9,073 dead. One of the things I noted about that, which people might not be aware of, it's just kind of a general rule for Canada, USA. Canada has about a tenth of the population, of the United States. So you can. There are a few other differences, that might help us a little. But in general, you should expect, if all other things are being equal, that Canada would have 1/10 of the numbers, but that is absolutely not where we are. We're at nearly half the deaths per capita of the United States, and almost a quarter of the infected per capita. So,
right.
To me, that's really the difference between an effective government and a completely ineffective government. Like, you can just see the stark difference here. That granted, when you have an effective government, it's not going to be perfect. People are still going to get sick. People are still going to die. It's terrible. Maybe we could do more. I don't know. Hopefully they're learning from their mistakes. But boy, when your government seems to just not give a crap about anything but enriching their friends who are selling bogus cures, you're going to pay the price. You're going to pay the price.
Well, and it's, the people who pay the price are, of course, never the people who order the restaurant meal.
Yeah. Yeah. COVID-19 is now the number 3 cause of death in the United States of America.
Number 3.
So number 1 is heart disease. Yeah. Number 1 is heart disease, with almost 650,000 deaths. And this is in a year. So COVID's only had about 6 months or so to ravage America. So they've only had half a year, but this is not adjusted to go, if it's double, right? This is just their total numbers so far compared to complete years of these other things. So brutal. So number 1, 647,000 for heart disease. Cancer, 599,000, almost 600,000 deaths. Number 3 used to be accidents, so unintentional injuries, so not intentionals, which had 169,936, so almost 170,000. So COVID has beat that and is now again climbing at 1,000 per day.
So this is more than the people who die in car accidents, who fall off ladders, who drown at the lake, who fall down the stairs at home.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of people die from accidents. They're a very common cause of death. It's the most common cause of death in young adults and youth.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID has just blasted by that in 6 months, compared to an annual rate of accidents. So that, and just about everybody knows someone who's died in an accident of some kind, some kind of accidental death.
Absolutely. So
this is the league now that the coronavirus is punching in.
Yeah.
Which, and this is why we mentioned that only 1.7% of the U.S. population has been infected. So less than a 50th of the U.S. population has been infected with this virus. But already, in total numbers, the virus now eclipses accidents. Also on the list of big causes of death, chronic lower respiratory diseases. So chronic lung disease is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Stroke. The coronavirus has killed more people than died of stroke in the U.S. last year. Stroke kills lots of people. More people than died of Alzheimer's disease. twice the number of people that died from diabetes-related complications.
Mm-hmm.
More than triple the number of deaths due to the flu. Do you remember all the it's just the flu bros?
It's just the flu.
There's still some just the flu bros out there. Well, no, I'm sorry. It's not just the flu. In 6 months, this has tripled flu deaths from a year.
Mm-hmm.
And chronic kidney disease, this 3.5 times the deaths, quadruple the deaths from suicide in the U.S. It's kind of hard to emphasize that when you are now starting to catch up to heart disease and cancer, which are the two biggest killers worldwide, after having been in the world less than 8 months, this is a big bad pandemic, and it's just absolutely amazing how far you can get on denial, though.
Speaking of denial, let's talk about Republicans and their response to these horrible, horrible numbers. CBS News' Face the Nation had a poll of Republicans, Democrats, and independents asking them the number of U.S. deaths from coronavirus has been, and this is national registered voters that they polled, and it was either acceptable or not acceptable. And I'm just going to put up the infographic. Please don't drink anything so you don't have to take a spit take. There we go. Republicans, acceptable 57% thought that 176,000 deaths is acceptable.
Just the cost of doing business.
Now, I remember when Obama was in as the president and that attack in Benghazi happened. And I remembered the Republicans losing their mind, like they would not shut up about those deaths. And they talked about it so much.
Seven separate inquiries about Benghazi.
Oh my God, that's right. And inquiries, and like the right wing news would not shut up about it. And one of the things is that I didn't know how many deaths happened in Benghazi because nobody ever talked about it. I was like, so I looked it up. I was like, how many people died in Benghazi? And does anybody here, anybody in chat know how many people died in Benghazi?
Without looking it up, you wags.
Without Googling. Obviously, you could Google it, because that's what I did. All right, I'm going to tell you how many. 4. Hold on, let me get rid of this infographic here. 4 people died in Benghazi, and the Republicans would not shut up about it. 176. It was 4. 100. Good guess. 100. Like, and now those same people who would not shut up about 4 people, which is like a car, like it's a car full of people, a tire blowing and them crashing into a pole and all dying. That's what that is. Now
you can't get away with that. You can't mention tire blowing with a car full of 4 people without mentioning that I was in the back seat of Joe's Volkswagen Beetle, and there were 4 of us on the highway, and his tire blew.
There were, yeah.
We were younger.
Who's the 4th? I remember you and Andy in the back.
Yeah. Was it JD Jessup?
No.
Lost to the mists of time.
Yeah. That was a wild one. I actually reminded you of this story recently, but I'll tell everybody. So we're driving on the highway. I had an old Volkswagen Beetle. It was a 1974 Volkswagen Beetle that had been given to me.
This was only the late 80s, so that was okay.
Yeah, well, also, those Beetles are solid. And also, parts for them were everywhere. Like, I had a friend who, for fun, would take his Beetle apart and lay out all the engine pieces on the lawn on a big tarp and clean them, and then he would put it all. But he was a mechanic, and then clean them and put them back together again. The horrible thing about my tire blowing is it started to kind of wobble as we were driving, like started going duk 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 duk, and I was worried about it, and I was like thinking, okay, if my tire blows, here's what I'll do. I'll slow down, I'll try to keep us straight, and I'll pull over to the right. I know we were in the fast lane at the time because traffic was fairly heavy on the highway. And I thought, and I'll slow down and I'll be calm and we'll pull over to the right and everything will be fine. We're not going to spin out. This will be okay. But it should be fine. And like a minute later, the tire goes boom and blows as we're doing 100 kilometers on the highway. And I went, okay, no, I got it. Slowed. I didn't slam on the brakes. I slowed us down. I looked over to the right to turn to the right. And the woman in the car on the right is doing this. She's slowing down and going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Get out of the way! I'm trying to pull over." Like, and she literally, the two cars just slowed down on the highway. So we had to pull over on the left side of the highway, like because and then she rolled down her window and asked if we were okay.
We would have been a lot more okay if we could have pulled to the shoulder.
If we pulled over to the right shoulder, it would have been way, way, way better. Like,
way more okay.
Just,
thanks, though.
Yeah, brutal. But we put the donut on.
Funny reactions to things.
It's fine. Okay, where are we? Oh yeah, 57%.
Carry on to the city to do whatever the heck it was we were going to do.
So let me get that infographic up again, because like even the I don't want to give the Democrats too much here, because still 10% of the Democrats think it's fine, and 33% of independents. Like America. Do you not care? Do you not care about? Although I would like to know what the Canadian numbers are, because a whole bunch of American bullshit comes up here and infects the brains of our people up here as well. I meet them. There's a Trumpist on my block. A guy that I talk to fairly regularly. Oh yeah, Glenn. He's the guy he's actually a pretty decent guy, but he's older and like I think lives on disability in a house that his parents bought or something like that. But he actually takes care of like the street that I live in, a cul-de-sac. I've mentioned this before. He like takes care of the street. He mows people's lawns for free because he's a nice guy. He hangs up flowers off of like the no parking signs and stuff. Like he actually makes it so he's a nice guy, but he loves Trump. He loves him. And I'm just like, I don't even argue. I just go, Glenn, guy's the lyingest president in history and loves fascists. I don't know. And it's almost trolling, I think, that he's doing when he talks about Trump to me. He knows it bugs me. He believes it, but he also knows it bugs me.
I mean, I find Trump entertaining. I guess that's a kind of love.
I don't anymore. Boy, I don't know. Did I ever?
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to more entertaining Trumpism later.
Did I ever? Yeah, I don't know.
So with that graphic in mind, some interesting research coming out recently. Sociopathic traits linked to non-compliance with mask guidelines and other COVID-19 containment measures, and we're mentioning these two stories together for no reason whatsoever.
No reason whatsoever. No reason. Turns out sociopaths don't like being told what to do.
Or helping people.
Or helping other people. But like, even if you were, that's the thing. Even if you were like completely selfish, you would want other people to wear masks, right? And you would even wear one yourself because it does give you a little bit of like it does give you some protection for yourself to wear a mask.
Looks like your mic's flipping there.
My mic? What? I didn't touch anything. La 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 la. Oh, I'm clipping. I'm too loud. You're right. Let me bring it down. Bring it down. La, la, la. Okay, good. Thank you for noting that. We can't hear, so I can't hear myself because it would just be a total mess here. But you're right. I can see that it was clipping. Also, I get loud. Okay.
You do. Not Kevin loud, but loud.
Thanks, Fred. Oh, God. Let's move on from that. So this is all true. My question, and I posted it in our research doc, is, I mean, that's not surprising, but is pointing it out going to change a sociopath's mind? Like, it's going to change anybody's mind?
Here's the thing to think about if you're a sociopath. Listen to me closely. If you model good mask-wearing behavior, people around you will wear masks, and you are less likely to get the coronavirus.
Yeah. So you're doing it. You're doing it for all those suckers around you to make those chumps keep you safe. Manipulate them, sociopath. Isn't that what you do? Manipulate people for your own gain? So do that. I'm behind you right now. As long as you're manipulating them to wear masks, for crying out loud. All right, news and science. I gotta get away from all of that. That's bad stuff. So we're starting off our news with some good news. I like this. We actually thought about putting this into our good news section. It's so good.
It is, yeah.
Do you want to intro this? I've been talking.
Yeah. So there's a new rapid test that uses saliva and gives a result back in 15 minutes, and it detects the protein coat of the virus instead of the RNA inside. The PCR works by amplifying and multiplying little chains of RNA to the point of chemical detectability, whereas the new rapid tests detect all the proteins in the membrane coat around the outside of the virus. Now, the nice thing about that test is a positive on that not only tells you, okay, yes, you have the coronavirus, but also you're currently infectious because we are detecting it in your secretions, which means that if those come out as droplets, you could be a source of infection. Now, it does tend to have a slightly higher false negative rate, but that can be overcome by re-administration of the test. So if somebody, say, had symptoms of an upper respiratory illness, particularly if they had the really specific symptoms like loss of taste, loss of smell, and they had a negative test, well, you can just retest them. The results come back in 15 minutes. You could retest them the next day because you either have the disease or you don't. So you can't have both a false negative result and a false positive result. Mm-hmm. One of those results is going to be true. And if you have the symptoms and the test is known to have a false negative rate and then you later test positive, that increases our confidence that that positive is a true positive.
Mm-hmm. And then the worst thing that happens with a false positive is you have to quarantine for a couple of weeks, right?
Right. Yeah. So the in public health, it's always kind of balance between preserving individual liberty to the degree you can versus public safety. So if somebody has to go into quarantine, that's a deprivation of liberty, but it's temporary and it's for the public good in a disease which is the number 3 cause of death in the U.S., even though it's only infected 1.7% of the population.
Mm-hmm. Do we know? So I know we've mostly got a Twitter link about this for Jen Heemstra, who is. I posted it in the chat. It's great, tons of info. Do we know how much this test costs? I guess a protein detecting test is not that expensive.
Cost, I don't know. I'm not really sure. It'll come down to things like the reagents. If this is like a rapid strip type test where you just kind of like put secretions on it and wait for a color change, that could actually end up being pretty cheap. But I don't know the specific chemistry behind the test.
It would be so great if we could just roll out tons of those tests, because it's almost like contact tracing, right? In that if you can just get these tests everywhere and test people as they say, you got to wait 15 minutes to come into this grocery store, right?
Yeah, or doctor's office,
do
or
this,
dentist.
Yeah. And then start just, once you find all the people who have this, then you isolate them, and then that virus can't spread anymore. And then with like that, it's, gone.
And when you have a 15-minute test, you can start working on a 10-minute test, 5-minute test, and then a 1-minute test. And then you can kind of drill down your technology to the point where it's very similar to a pregnancy test. Oh. And if we get to that, with that kind of cheap, then boom, now we have really good tool to get on top of infection control.
And then you can have your parties at your house, as long as you have like a little peed on stick or a spit on stick or whatever the test ends up being for every single person at that party, then we know that they're probably fine and it's good. I do love
a bowl full of them at the front door.
I love what Eskimiel said. I can already hear my sociopath patients going, well, if someone wants me to manipulate, it isn't fun anymore. When we were talking about manipulating people to wear masks. Yeah.
But you tell them that you're manipulating the people who don't want to wear masks. You're manipulating them into wearing masks. So they'll end up wearing masks and they don't want to because they think it's a scam, but they're actually keeping the public safe. So the sociopath is helping public safety, personal safety, and getting those manipulative strokes.
So moving on, this is a weird bit here. I find first U.S. virus cases in mink found at 2 Utah farms, and my question is, who is coughing on mink? So there is there. So apparently it's been happening in Europe, but now finally it's happening in America. It's not huge news. I don't think any of us are in danger of going to a mink farm and picking up COVID or anything like that. But it just troubles me when when animals can become like a reservoir for this disease, because it could sit there. Maybe we'll get our vaccine and everything will be fine, but meanwhile, COVID's off in these mink or whatever populations of animals somewhere else, and mutating and changing and getting worse. And then maybe we're going to have COVID-21 come back with a vengeance out of the mink population because it's mutated and the vaccine doesn't work anymore.
Somebody gets a mink bite, which I imagine probably, or a mink scratch. I imagine these things happen on mink farms. I don't know. I'm not a mink farmer.
I dated a girl in college whose parents had a mink farm, and she regularly described them as assholes. Yeah. Yeah.
We have to kill them and turn them into jackets. They're real jerks.
Yeah, it's a moral imperative. The article notes more than 1 million mink were killed on Dutch farms with outbreaks to prevent the spread of the disease. I'm sure it wasn't that huge a loss because they were probably going to kill them anyway and turn them into coats. Maybe some of them provided a little less fur.
It is the natural history of the mink to be killed for fur.
Hey, do you want to know what they do with the mink meat? They feed it to the other mink.
What? Oh my god!
Why throw it away? You got all these animals you got to feed. You got all this meat lying around after you pull their fur off. I know. Hooray, fur industry! I'm not even not 100% against fur. Like, those animals had it coming, being all soft and silky, but still.
Vegetarian, 14 years, no regrets.
Yeah.
No regrets.
I don't own fur. I don't think I would ever buy fur. If the fur industry went away, I would not complain. But I'm not. I don't know. I don't care. All right, moving on from that one. That's just a brief notice that it's troubling to me. Like, I just... can we not have it get into animals and then get weird? When you first posted this one, the title on this one kind of confused me. Long haulers are redefining COVID-19. And that made me think, are long haul truck drivers having some interesting side effects with COVID or something like that? But that's not what they mean.
They are not. No.
This is what we've talked about recently, which is the lingering illness that's going on. Tell us about that,
long haul. Yeah, so there's a number of individuals, I think including Schemiel here in our own chat, who got the virus very early, like mid-March. And here we are mid-August. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks are still reporting symptoms. And these can include all of the original symptoms of the disease. So it can be things like sweats. It can be easily fatigued. It can be coughing. Mm-hmm. And it can come and it can go, or it can just stay. There was one case I read about somebody who is a sommelier, and they haven't got their sense of smell back. You're not employable in that field if you can't smell the difference between different red wines. So it can, and a lot of the symptoms are starting to mirror, especially in terms of the fatigue and the low energy, and really paying a heavy price if you try to push through it, of chronic fatigue syndrome. So there's still watching this. Nobody knows how long it lasts. There are some people who've had long COVID or chronic COVID 5 months and appear to have recovered. But there's some people who the symptoms are still just raging. We have no idea what the ultimate outcome is going to be. But just imagine the worst flu of your life, and you're just barreling on into month 6. So this is the outcome above all others that I fear, right? If if I die of coronavirus, well, I won't know that I've died of coronavirus. But if I survive and I'm living in a constant state, COVID, that terrifies me
Yeah.
because if I've got cognitive difficulties, okay, I can't work, but I also can't enjoy my life. If I'm sweating sheets every night or coughing to the point where I feel like I'm cracking a rib, and that's misery. And what's really interesting is there are people who are showing, who've even tested positive at some point in the distant past, 5-6 months ago, who
Feels distant.
then test negative and then have a resurgence of all their symptoms, still test negative, but have the coronavirus. And one of the issues is early on, when there were just very limited tests available in the U.S., a lot of people were, and this happened in Canada too, a lot of people were told, if you have upper respiratory symptoms, just stay home. And the problem is, after 3 months, we can't really detect antibodies either, because the natural history of your immune system is when you don't need to be cranking out antibodies for an infection, you stop cranking out antibodies. It's conservation of resources, right? The immune system kind of calms down. So you might test negative for antibodies. You didn't get the chance to get a coronavirus test. You've now suddenly got these chronic symptoms, and you've got no way to prove that you have chronic coronavirus, because there is no way to establish laboratory evidence. What do those folks do? Because they're facing problems of disbelief from their doctor's offices, from their employers, friends and family. It's the very typical story of a chronic disease that isn't like immediately disfiguring. As a species, we just seem incapable of believing that there can be a chronic disease in someone who doesn't look sick. So the folks now with long COVID are beginning to encounter the very same kinds of problems and barriers as folks with chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right. Now, do we know what I'm sure we don't have exact numbers, but do we know what the general numbers are for people who have long COVID? Like percentages, say, of people who get infected or anything like that?
Well, no, we don't. Okay. So there are some series that show 10 to 15% of individuals are showing active symptoms. There are the really scary studies, like the one in Germany that did MRIs of people's hearts who had a positive test and either mild or no symptoms, and 80% of them showed cardiac inflammation. So there's a wide range of people who are showing symptomatic or asymptomatic problems long after they've had this infection. And how is that going to manifest down the road? Nobody.
Yeah, this scares me too, because I am. It's jokingly called the man cold, but when I get sick, I get laid out. Like when I get the flu, I'm out. I'm done. I'm in bed. I can't sit in a chair and play video games. I often get a cold and I'm just wrecked. So if I get COVID, I do not have much hope for myself. I'm just gonna. Let me finish that sentence. I'm just gonna be really, really sick for a long time, probably. Hopefully, not dead.
Possibly, yeah, possibly sick for a very long time. And then like here in the chat, right? So Ischemial has developed tachycardia, so that's a high heart rate. Marvin, I can't smell my farts since I got COVID. I'm not joking.
So silver lining.
Yeah. So that's like 2 of 9 people currently logged into the chat with ongoing symptoms, and that kind of lines up with sort of that 15% figure. And of course, there's going to be a lot of variability, and who knows how many people are out there walking around, and their heart is a ticking time bomb. They had asymptomatic or low symptomatic disease, but they still have their own immune system kind of running a little bit wild in their heart.
Yep.
That ain't great. And suddenly, are they going to start to develop progressive heart failure and suddenly need a cardiac transplant in 5 or 10 years? I don't know. I certainly don't have the answer. I don't know.
How many hearts are we going to have to transplant?
Well, we're not going to have very many hearts transplanted. And that's because of airbags. There used to be all kinds of transplant organs, but then somebody said, hey, let's put bags in cars. Crash fatality rates went way down, and suddenly transplant teams have nothing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird world.
I remember that. All right. The World Health Organization says children aged 12 and over should wear masks like adults. So let me say, Joe Foldrum says children who are able to wear masks of any age should wear them like adults if they can. I totally understand that young children are going to have problems wearing masks. I get it. But if you can convince your kid that they are a superhero when they wear that mask, right? Winter Soldier wears that mask. Winter Soldier wore a COVID, right? Like,
Yes, he did.
So I tell them that they're being a hero. They're protecting others. They're protecting themselves by wearing that mask whenever they're near them. I also, now this reminds me, I love people who have taught their kids to freak out for them when they see somebody without a mask on. They've taught their kid at grocery stores to, when they see somebody with a mask, to go, Mommy, that man's not wearing a mask. Are we all going to die? Just so she doesn't have to be the jerk to the guy. I love it. Teach your kids that too. That's what I love to see.
Teach your kids adult shaming.
Yeah.
They won't take it from you. But oh boy, will they boil with shame if it's coming from a kid.
Right? Right. Well, some will boil with shame. Some will then attempt to tell your kid that they are sheeple.
Well, those are the people that we start backing away slowly from.
Then back away slowly. Yes, dear, that man is very, very dangerous. Let's stay far away. That's how that works.
We'll pick him up and carry him out of the store.
So, hey, what do you think the difference is in countries that properly or fairly properly handle COVID as compared to the U.S. in their economic growth? If you guessed they do better, you are right. Canada's so the title here is Canada's economic growth seen outpacing U.S.'s virus containment pays off. Outpacing is not exactly right. It's almost double. Our economy setting at an annualized rate, is set to grow at an annualized rate of 36% in the third quarter compared to 20% for the United States. So when you do it right, when your government is even half competent and gives a shit about saving lives, this goes back to the 10 times the population thing we were talking about earlier, and how fewer people there are and how Canada's doing lots of contact tracing and all that other stuff. That helps the economy. We've also talked about this when dealing with New Zealand. I think I mentioned this. New Zealand, basically being an island nation, it was a little easier for them and stuff, got rid of it. New Zealand has a very strong film industry down there, thanks in no small part to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so that they have a lot of experts there that can be hired to make films. And I heard from my friends in the film industry that almost all of the major studios were looking at sending their crews to New Zealand, where they would then for 2 weeks go into quarantine to make sure that they were okay, and then be allowed to go into the population and then make all their films in New Zealand.
It's like the NHL bubble.
What's that?
That's going to be good for New Zealand.
It's great. Yeah. Oh my God. Think of the extra money they could charge, because supply and demand, right? They only have so many people to work on your film in New Zealand, even though you're bringing some in, and the demand is even higher than it was before because New Zealand handled coronavirus properly.
And this goes back to an early online discussion that kept happening, that people were saying, oh, if it hadn't been for these lockdowns, we wouldn't have tanked the economy. Whereas if you look at all, public health experts and economists very broadly agree, no, it wasn't the public health measures that tanked the economy. It was the coronavirus.
Yeah.
People were already, restaurant reservations had fallen off a cliff. People had stopped going out. A lot of economic measures were stopping because people were just scared and staying home. And if you run a business that depends on the physical presence of traffic, you were hurting already in March before any public health measures got imposed.
Yeah.
That hasn't really changed. A lot of people are still very scared, not going out, And guess what? You know, you want to get people unscared and re-engaging with economic activity. Well, get your virus problem under control.
And
that's how you do it.
And not just that, but Canada's been really good about supporting people financially through all of this. We've got a program called CERB that gives you $2,000 a month, which for some of us is not a ton, especially here in Vancouver. Your rent might be most of that, but at least it's something. America gave, what, $1,200 once? Here you go, here's $1,200. And like, so what happens to your economy when all of these people have no money to spend and are scared? They're gonna turtle up even more because they can't afford anything. They can't afford even to rent movies. They might have to like cancel subscriptions to their online stuff. They've got to cost cut everywhere they can, and that's awful for your economy. This is I don't understand the right wing when it comes to them saying they understand money in the economy, because they always get it wrong in these instances, constantly get it wrong.
Well, and it gets even worse for some people who've got to feed families. So they're facing the fact that they might be living in a state where there was no broad introduction of public health measures. And so I either have to go to work and risk getting the coronavirus, or I can't feed my family. Mm-hmm. That's the choice that a lot of people are facing.
Right. which means that you're literally paying people to stay safe so that your economy can recover. This makes makes total sense. I'm sure this is what any experts that Trump might still have on his staff, the one or two of them still toughing it out there, have told him.
And those direct payments to people get spent in the economy. It's not like it's not like tax cuts, which just the wealthy use to get even more wealthy and not trickle it down, right? Mm-hmm. If you give somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck $2,000, they're going to go out to the bread maker and buy bread. They're going to go to the butcher and they're going to buy meat. And then the bread maker and the butcher are going to turn around and they're going to buy rice and shoes. And so the money flows around in the economy and actually supports local businesses. So it actually accomplishes the goal.
Yep. And then on top of that, our next story, we've got people with COVID-19 often lie about symptoms and distancing, according to research.
I'm showing you Vader. I don't do that often. But all you people lying about having the coronavirus.
So, results include 34% of COVID-19 positive participants had denied having symptoms when asked by others. 55% reported some level of concealment of their symptoms. 25% of participants reported some level of concealment of their physical distancing practices. Those with COVID-19 had higher physical distancing concealment. So they lied about whether or not they were socially distancing themselves. So they didn't, and then said they did. You know it's wrong, and you did it, and then you lie about it. 53% of COVID-19 positive participants denied needing to quarantine when asked by others. Oh, you've got quarantine, or you got COVID. Shouldn't you be quarantining? No, more than half.
It's fine. It's fine.
Now, is this America? Who is this? People living in the United States. Yeah, okay, so this was America. Which, the individualism in America, the take care of yourself and fuck everybody else belief system is just so prevalent there. I think it's... again, Canada would probably still have numbers that would shock us, but I think they'd still be significantly lower.
I hope so. I wonder if there's data on that. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see that. My opinion on... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you watch zombie movies, and the person who gets bit, but it's a trope in zombie movies that there's a person who disguises having been bit by the zombie, and it turns out that's just like a lot of us. A lot of us would be the person covering the bite mark, and then going zombie in the camp, and killing half the camp.
Yeah.
Lol.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Those who concealed their own COVID-19 status and behaviors were less critical of others for doing so, of course. Women were more readily disclosing health symptoms during this pandemic compared to men. That's, again, I think fairly obvious. Men are taught to be more individualistic, and women are taught to be more nurturing and caring about others. That's the thing that we do. Older adults and those who scored higher on the communal orientation scale were more honest about their COVID-19 status and behaviors. I wonder if the older ones are because they're more scared of the results. Like that seems like a reason to me. Like even no matter how denialist you are, you have heard that it's more dangerous to older people. So I could totally see younger people being like, it's no big deal. I'm going to tell everybody I'm fine. And older people being, well, wait a minute.
So lots of, as is the case in so many conditions and problems, coronavirus dishonesty is a situation that seeks out and finds young men.
Yeah. It's
which brings us to Victoria.
Speaking of Canada, let's post this in there.
Friday morning, our provincial government imposed fines of in the neighborhood of $2,000 for individuals hosting events that are too large, and around $200 for individuals who participate in events that are too large. And Friday night, we had our first party busted up and fined twice.
So, Victoria Police say after hearing about plans for a large party, officers attended a one-bedroom suite at approximately 7 p.m. to inform the resident of COVID-19 safety regulations. They say there were about 30 people there when they showed up. So they busted that party. Said, hey, you can't do that. They returned to the building at 10:30 p.m. and observed approximately 15 people inside the suite. The host was warned the party was considered unsafe, and he replied that he would cooperate. However, police say groups of people continued to come and go from the building, and when officers returned to the suite for a third time, they found it crammed with approximately 30 partygoers who were not practicing physical distancing. This is the line that gets me. The room was densely populated, hot, and moisture had built up on the windows, reads the release from the Victoria Police Department. Many of the party attendees were youth. So the moisture on the windows, Rob, where does that come from, Doctor?
Well, as I understand it, that comes from our breathing holes.
The cops showed up to your place twice and said, you can't do this, it's unsafe, and there's a $2,000 fine. And it sounds like they didn't fine him at first. And he said, okay. And then they came back and found 15 people, and they went, you can't do this. And then they got him again. Police say that they figure there were about 60 people who'd attended the party coming and going throughout the evening.
In the coronavirus hotbox.
Yeah, that's hotbox is exactly what it is. You're right. Yeah, that's what that moisture on the windows is. That's what the warmth is when the air gets all foggy and stuff. That's all the people who have breathed out into it, and you're all closed in. And what that tells me is the asshole didn't even open the windows. Like Friday was warm. It was a hot day. The evening was probably nice and warm as well. And if you had opened up the windows, it would still be unsafe, but maybe you'd save some lives. Maybe.
So unfortunately, we'll never find out. All we'll get is like a sort of a vague public announcement that there are coronavirus cases linked to a party in Victoria. They might publish the address. I don't know. But public outbreaks, maybe now private outbreaks, are going to get listed.
They told us the block. I didn't mention, I skipped over it. It's the 1000 block of Fort Street in Victoria. So if anybody knows that asshole, let's... I don't know, did he finally learn his lesson with the $2,000 fine? Who knows?
I don't know. I believe police were called back to his place last night. I think there's a follow-up story. So far, no. Once again, the coronavirus is seeking out and finding young men.
But it's not just coronavirus that's dangerous and these kinds of things. Now, this one's awful. This is in Peru. A nightclub in Lima, Peru, was raided by police because they had again a COVID-19 lockdown, and there were more than 120 people attending. And when the police showed up to crash the party, people tried to stampede out. There were stairs to get out, and I guess people fell, and 13 people died, at least. The police ended up only arresting 23, which means they arrested less than twice the number of people who died, simply because the police showed up. So enforcement of this is dangerous, because as we've learned from recent news all over America and even Canada and other places, the people that we trust to enforce these things are not necessarily very good at keeping us safe.
Yeah.
But for that club owner, those people would be alive as well.
It's a it's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, brutal. Just brutal. Damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like, do you not enforce because you're worried that people are going to die, or I feel the same way about the fines, because rich people don't care. Like, we've got so many people in the, say, West End of Vancouver for whom $2,000 is what they paid for the snacks at their party. So they don't care. Oh, $2,000, that's the cost of having a party now, I guess. They feel that way about parking tickets. Like, I remember Reddit had threads like this, like, what was it like dating a really rich person? And like one woman was saying she dated this super rich guy, and he would just park wherever he wanted. And she was like, "You can't park here. There's like a $75 fine." And he said, "Yeah, that's just the cost of parking there."
It's a good to be rich.
Yeah, he just and if they tow him, he just he pays for a cab or an Uber to get to where his car is, and he pays whatever the money is and gets his car back, and he's fine. Rich people don't care. And then poor people. Like, what are you gonna fine, say, our homeless people in the downtown east side for not social distancing? You're gonna try and get $200 out of a homeless person for attending a group? Like, so it's complicated. Like, I support that we need to enforce this somehow. I get it. We totally do. And I don't even know if the answer is to scale the fines based on income. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. My answer is I don't know. I want to know what the experts say.
Yeah, I mean the don't enforce argument comes back to HIV when tests were finally developed, and it was really imperative to determine, okay, who's got HIV, what's the best approach, and ultimately it was determined that a non-shaming approach, where individuals could come forward and they could work with contact tracers in confidence, that led to the best detection of who had HIV throughout the community.
Right.
And so that's been the model for epidemics and pandemics since then. And that's been the model in British Columbia, where there's been a very light touch on enforcement, simply because they don't want people afraid of approaching public health and afraid of disclosing forthrightly to public health who their contacts have been. So I wonder now, when public health is kind of caught in this dual role of having to trace and detect cases, but also having to enforce the rules, or is seen as part of this apparatus. Are people going to be afraid to come forward, say, from that party? Are they worried that the cops are going to get told? Are they going to not want to mention the names of other people who were at that party? Even if it's completely watertight and no information would leak, there's the perception. And it's... people are already, they're already embarrassed about maybe getting the fact that they got coronavirus because of really poor judgment from attending a party. And when you're already embarrassed, you're less inclined to cooperate in that situation that's causing you acute embarrassment and shame. And so that the inhibitory power of shame is the thing that public health is trying to avoid at all costs. They're trying to avoid activating that. But the enforcement, if you come down on sort of the do enforce side, inevitably activates that. And so there are a lot of people in the community who are going, yeah, you break up that. And, I resonate with those emotions myself. I'm sort of, oh, you idiots. And it pleases me that this doofus in Victoria got fined. But I also have to kind of rationally recognize that the long-term public health consequence of this is, all right, maybe people who went to that party aren't going to be as likely to go forward. So, I mean, it sounds like this was a pretty egregious instance, and maybe there were no more options left. How many times do you go to a party and say to people, okay, look, everyone's got to go home? I don't know. These are difficult cases, and they're just basically always difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like in the Victoria story that the police did do a light touch, right? Because they didn't show up and find the guy. They showed up the second time and just went, dude, don't. And then they saw people again, and they went back a third time. Because I cannot imagine that they find him and then he went, let's keep doing the party. So,
right.
Some people are just assholes. Like, that guy's an asshole. The cops knew about your party. Because people told him. Yeah. And I want to go to parties. I get it. I want to talk to people again within 6 feet. I still do occasionally get together with friends. Went for a walk through the park on Thursday. It was really nice. But like, we met outside my house. Everybody arrived wearing masks, even though we were still outside. We took our masks off, but then 3 of us walking through the park, like, just distant. And we'd see anybody else, and we would just go around them.
That's the way to do it.
But it's totally the way to do it. Still got to see my friends, got to talk to them, like, in person and stuff. But we were separate. We're out in the big, fresh, open air. It was great. I love that the weather's doing better right now. We've got our 2 months of summer here in Vancouver.
Got to use it. Got to get it in you while you can. Yeah. So time to talk about this. We've coined a new term, Fakethroughs.
That's right.
Or fake breakthroughs. So this week's fake through, convalescent plasma. Now, what is that? That the big news here is that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of the United States, has granted an emergency use authorization, or an EUA, for something called convalescent plasma. Now, you may remember EUAs from such films as chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, where the FDA back in April granted an EUA so that chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine could be used for the treatment of the coronavirus. And they ultimately took that back, and now they've granted an EUA for the use of convalescent plasma. Now, that's something we've known about for about 100 years. Basically, someone survives a disease that's rampant in the community. You take some blood out of them, you separate the cells, and you kind of spin it down to the antibodies, and you inject those antibodies into somebody who is at high risk of developing the disease. And you can potentially, those antibodies will mop up the virus at the earliest point of infection, and boom, it prevents them from getting the disease.
Okay.
So they've been researching this since March, and it turns out that convalescent plasma is pretty mediocre in the coronavirus. This is why we haven't heard much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've known about this for over 100 years. It was used in the Spanish influenza as a way of preventing cases, and it's been looked at since March in the coronavirus, and it just really hasn't shown very impressive results. Yeah, if you get somebody really early before they seroconvert, which means before the virus goes kaboom throughout their blood, then and they develop their own antibody, then these antibodies will help. If somebody already has an immune response and they are generating antibodies, injecting a tiny percentage of antibodies does nothing. It's like throwing an extra gallon of water on a forest fire after the helicopters already come in and drop the big bucket.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. You want to throw that in while it's still a campfire. So and this has been the problem. All right, who do we give the convalescent plasma to? Do we give it to people who've just been exposed and haven't showed symptoms yet? So this is a major issue. You want to give it within 3 days of exposure, but there's no real way to know who to give it to. Otherwise, it's useless. And this seems to be a particular feature within COVID-19 that's kind of made this stuff pretty useless. So, of course, this has now been touted as the miracle of the week. So we go from Trump steaks to Trump University to Trump fish tank cleaner, because as you recall, chloroquine is the main ingredient in fish tank cleaners. The story we missed from last week was oleander, which is a deadly poison. It's a deadly poisonous plant, and an extract from it called oleandrin was touted by the CEO of MyPillow, and somehow that caught Trump's ear for a hot minute, and he was all about Trump deadly poison. Somehow, I don't know if he got talked down off that ledge or if convalescent plasma just distracted his ferret brain onto the next thing. But luckily, oleandrin didn't seem to go anywhere, which is good. I mean, it's a poison that's so deadly that there are murder mysteries where oleander is the weapon. So it was the maid in the study with oleander leaf. But now the research has been ongoing with convalescent plasma, and as scientists have pointed out, it's already hard enough to get a hold of this product to do research with. But now that the emergency use authorization has been granted, I mean, everybody remember what happened to hydroxychloroquine when the EUA was granted? All those people with lupus who genuinely need this stuff couldn't get it. And it was given all over the place to all kinds of people who were developing all kinds of really bad heart rhythm problems, including there were a couple of fatalities early on. There was I believe in Arizona, there was a couple who managed to get fish tank cleaner off of eBay and dosed themselves and killed themselves unintentionally. These are dangerous things.
Feels like years ago, that story.
Yeah, these are dangerous things. Yeah. So we go from Trump fish tank cleaner to then Trump deadly poison, and now it's Trump serum. We've gone from Trump steaks to Trump serum. And, it's a blood product. Blood products can carry other deadly viruses if they don't get detected.
So,
blood products can induce fatal allergic reactions. Blood products can induce immune reactions. These are not benign things, but now you're going to have every Republican under the sun. Oh, gosh, I was near that guy. He had a sniffle. Just load me up with the convalescent serum, doc.
Oh, I have a worse prediction. 100% no. I know it's going to happen. People are going to hear about this. People who trust Trump and who will think that they can do anything, they're going to start giving each other blood transfusions. They're going to find somebody who had COVID, and they're going to draw their blood, and then they're going to give the blood to somebody else, thinking that's how it works.
That's some Slender Man shit.
And they're going to sell it. They're gonna not just I'm going to save your life. They're going to call it a treatment, and they're going to charge for it. I have no doubt.
You heard it here first, folks. People spinning their own blood products and selling their own plasma.
It's gonna happen. Oh, it won't be plasma. They won't know how to separate the plasma out from the blood. They're just gonna draw blood and then they're gonna stick it in somebody else. That's how it's gonna be. Do you remember? God, what was it? The woman who did was it butt implants, but it turned out to be cement.
I was thinking of exactly that story. Yes, injecting cement into people's butts.
Yep.
Calling herself a plastic surgeon.
Yep.
Doing this in her garage.
Yep.
She was a nail technician.
Yep. It's going to be that, but blood. That's my prediction. Calling it right now.
And it will happen in Florida, because that's where this always happened.
Yeah. Let's watch something funny. Should we watch? I mean, it's funny, but it's sad funny. God, I have it queued up.
Which one's this?
This is Monty Python and the Holy Grail as COVID reopening phases explained. Here we go. There we go. Full screen. Let me make sure that that's working on my streaming software. Good enough. It's big enough. It's not that high quality on the YouTube anyway.
There he is.
Where?
There.
What, behind the rabbit?
It is the rabbit.
I love this movie. It's one
You
of
silly sod.
What?
You got us all worked up.
Well, that's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel, and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
Oh, hold on.
You
Content warning, this does get violent.
tit. I saw my arm and I was so scared.
Look, that rabbit's got a vicious streak a mile wide. It's a killer.
Get stuck.
He'll do you a treat, mate.
Oh, yeah? Manky Scots git.
I'm warning you.
What's he do? Nibble your bum?
He's got huge, sharp... he can leap about. Look at the bones.
Go on, boys. Chop its head off. Right, silly little bleeder. One rabbit stew coming right up.
Look.
Florida.
Jesus Christ. I warned you.
I've done it again.
I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you? Oh, it's just a harmless little bunny, isn't it? Well, it's always the same. I always tell them,
shut up!
do they listen to me?
Right.
Oh, no.
Blood plasma. Hydroxychloroquine. Reopen.
Run away! Run away!
There we go.
I gotta watch the movie again. That was that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
and exactly right.
it really is.
So in November 3rd, America, get off the Monty Python train if you want.
I'm so worried
Okay,
about that
now-
election. I'm so worried about that election, Rob.
Oh, sure. It is absolutely. There's going to be massive disenfranchisement and other kinds of skeevy attempts to, this is like some Eastern European shit. What's going on in
Oh, yeah.
America
Yeah,
to
and even
illegitimize the vote?
the blatant attack on mailed-in ballots, like, it's so transparent that the reason they don't like mail-in ballots is you can't hack them. Like, we know
Yeah.
that their voting machines were hacked last election by Russia. We know that. And Trump knows that. And he knows that they want to hack them this election. But you can't hack a mailed-in ballot, which is why he's so against mailed-in ballots.
Yes.
There's no other there's no other reason. All of his claims are wrong. So it's so fucking oh god.
The best part is Trump himself has voted by mail.
He does, yeah. Yeah, both he and his wife voted
yeah.
by mail. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are absentee ballots, not mail-in ballots. That's important.
Right.
Okay, time for my personal favorite segment,
Yeah.
Denialist of the Week. We've got a couple of juicy ones here for you, folks. So there's one that our Denialist of the Week is very special and deserves time and attention. So we're just going to go straight to honorable mention. This is a good case of what is commonly called Nobel disease, whereby previous Nobel winners get outside their area of expertise and just spew absolute horseshit. And in this case, it's South African chemist Michael Levitt, who won the Nobel Prize in 2013, quote, for the development of multi-scale models for complex chemical systems, unquote. Sounds like some really interesting and important research. Sounds also like it has nothing to do with medicine, infectious disease, epidemiology, or public health. Michael Levitt has basically been spewing a more or less constant stream of misquoted stats, just simply blatantly false stats, and drawing all kinds of spurious inferences from them, basically to say things aren't as bad as they could be, and we don't need to be as worried about this as we are, and let's open up that economy. let's give you the flavor of it here. If you get mentioned by Bad COVID Takes, which is one of my favorite Twitter follows, then you know that you are misinforming or disinforming the public. I think initially I had thought with Levitt that it was misinformation, but now, frankly, I think he's actively disinforming the public. And the difference is knowingly, if you're knowingly publishing false information that's intended to distort the discourse, I call that disinformation. Whereas misinformation, you may not know that you are pushing false information, but he's just flat out modifying statistics on publicly available information, or as Bad COVID Takes puts it in the tweet. I just saw this CDC. Here's Levitt. Quote, "These data are encouraging. Can anyone help explain why deaths in U.S. are so much older than in Europe?" And then the reply, "Answer," and this is from Bad COVID Takes, "because your numbers are wildly wrong."
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, he had initially suggested that only 4.6% of deaths were below the age of 65, whereas in fact, looking at the CDC source, which he quotes in his spurious data, 21% of the deaths, or 20.7 if we want to be specific, are under the age of 65. So somehow he missed a multiplier of 5 in these fatalities. And in fact, only 32% of deaths are over age 85, and the other 47% are between ages 65 and 84.
And even, I did the math, 4.6% of 167,000 is still 8,000 deaths.
Yeah. So even if his spurious figures are wrong, hey, it's only 8,000.
It's only 8,000. It's only 2,000 times more people than died in Benghazi. It's only more than twice as died in 9/11, which led to $1 trillion war.
Fine. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. But this isn't. It kind of, in terms of really the derp wattage, which really is what we kind of go for here. I think, in terms of just pure derp candle power, we've got to go with Robert J. O'Neill. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. You, sir, are our denialist of the week. Joe, why don't you lead off with this amazing story?
Yeah, so Robert J. O'Neill, he is the Navy SEAL from SEAL Team 6, or, well, we're going to say formerly of SEAL Team 6. He claims he killed Osama bin Laden, and he tweeted a photo of himself on a Delta flight, not wearing a mask, very smugly smiling into the camera with the phrase, "I'm not a pussy." I'm not even going to show the photo. Fuck that guy.
Well, there's a few things that are interesting in the photo. First of all, in the aisle across from him, there's a guy wearing the United States Marine Corps who is wearing a mask.
Yeah, and the oh, you do have the image here. All right, let's show the image.
Am I there?
Oh, I just lost you. Are you showing the image? I just see rotating circles.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I got you back now. Yeah. You're back. Can you hear me?
Go to slide.
Okay, hold on. Let me get this.
You got me?
I do. Hi. Yes.
Okay, I can't. Yeah, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. All right.
Damn it.
So, if you go to the tweet, which has now been deleted, immediately behind Robert O'Neill is a Delta flight attendant. So it's sort of like, yes, I too am very brave when mom is not looking at me. He apparently he would have had the mask on, or the flight attendant wouldn't have gone by him. So he probably just took the mask off, tweeted out the photo. "I'm the guy that killed Osama bin Laden, and look at me, not scared of this puny little virus." It's absolutely brilliant, right? Well, the internet completely melted down, as the internet does, and ultimately, a couple things happened that are really fantastic. First, Delta Airlines banned him. And his response is, "I just got banned from Delta for posting a picture." Wow. Sorry, that's not a save. That is not a save. And the best part is the tweet got deleted, and there's some controversy as to who deleted that tweet. Robert J. O'Neill tweeting, "I didn't delete my tweet. My wife did." Like all brave boys, he runs and hides behind his wife when the heat gets a little too high. We'll leave it as an exercise to the audience to judge whether the sexist slur for cowardice does or doesn't apply to you, Mr. O'Neill. But then the story gets even better.
It really
because
does.
Now that this guy has launched himself into stratospheric infamy, some stories started surfacing that it turns out he's a rather polarizing figure even within the SEAL community. His former teammates actually credit another SEAL with fatally wounding bin Laden before O'Neill entered the room and fired several shots into the terrorist leader's face. Following his separation from the Navy, O'Neill's name was added to SEAL Team 6's Rock of Shame, an unofficial list of unit pariahs, and he has been banned from the team's Virginia Beach headquarters. Now, that could have all just been left to lie, and he could have gone around claiming to be the dude who killed Osama bin Laden, and the SEALs would have been like, whatever, go out there, live your famed lie. But now a whole lot of dirt is coming out on Mr. I Am Very Brave O'Neill.
Yeah. So let's restart this to try to fix the. We'll be right back. We're just we're gonna fix this call. So let's do that. There we go. There we go. All right. Can you hear me, Rob?
I can hear you.
All right. Good stuff. I can hear you. We're back. Let me just pop this up. And let's go back to that page. Hey, there we go. All right, we're back and we can hear each other again. Yeah, so I looked up the Rock of Shame. It's pretty cool. Like, I'm not a huge rah pro-military guy, but I really respect this Rock of Shame because it's not just about COVID deniers. He was actually put on the Rock of Shame after he left the Navy. And it was because he was I'm the guy who killed Osama bin Laden, because the SEAL Team 6 does not want you promoting yourself or trying to get or to like sell out. They don't want you to sell out. They want you to do your job and be quiet and serve your country, and then you're done. And so if you sell out at all, they will put you on this Rock of Shame, and that bans you from coming to their headquarters. So if you retire and are cool, you get to come back to the SEAL Team headquarters whenever you want. They have reunions all the time. You get to go there and hang out with all the other SEAL Team 6. But this is basically like Klingons discommodating him, right? They've done to turn around and kick him out of their club because he's a fucking asshole. And even the story about him killing Osama bin Laden, like somebody else fatally wounded this guy. He's lying on the floor, slowly dying, which some would argue, I don't think I would, but still I get it, that maybe he should die slowly. And in comes Robert J. O'Neill and just on his own shoots him in the face a bunch of times. And brags about that. Like that's his thing. Rob, weren't you saying that somebody met him in a taxi? Or got in the taxi?
Yeah.
What was that story?
In an Uber. Yeah,
Uber.
Somebody jumped in an Uber that O'Neill it was an Uber pool, the shared Uber. And there was kind of this conversation going on, and O'Neill was in, and somebody else said, "Oh, what was that all about?" "Oh, this guy was telling me all about how he's the guy who shot bin Laden," said the driver in a somewhat exasperated, semi-bored tone of voice.
Right. So he's a fucking loser, is what he is. Jesus, like.
But he's a famous loser, or an infamous loser,
and you can't. He didn't even really, you know what? He did not kill Osama bin Laden. Robert J. O'Neill did not kill Osama bin Laden. Robert J. O'Neill put Osama bin Laden out of his misery. Fuck you, Robert J. O'Neill. Okay, let's move on to the good stuff. Fuck that guy. The guy, he's good at killing, And then he wears a mask so he can kill other people, or doesn't wear a mask so he'll kill other people potentially.
Yeah, he's Robert J. O'Neill, the merciful, non-discriminatory killer of all.
So some real brief news that's good news for me. Loblaws Metrotown, that is the Real Canadian Superstore that's right by me, only a few blocks away where I go to get my groceries, is going to be making masks mandatory, I think starting next week, which is great. I wear my mask when I go. There's actually a fairly large Chinese ethnic population here, so most of the people in my store do wear masks. I have noticed that a lot of the employees don't. Many do, but there are a lot that do not. I'm really happy now that they're going to make all their employees wear them, that people coming into the store are going to wear them, so that I don't have to play I have literally thought about it as a video game in my mind of like avoiding people as I go down no, let me go down that aisle some other time.
Yeah. I've internally gamified. Yeah. Now today, speaking of shopping, I was at a grocery store with my blushing bride, who's watching the show, and it's a TNT, which rigidly enforces a 100% mask policy. That is all employees, the security guard who enforces the mask policy, all customers. And I wish I had my camera out because I finally had my idiot in a grocery store moment. There was a guy that tried to come in wearing a Lone Ranger mask, hilarious, no shirt, no shoes, and making a big noise about, I'm wearing a mask, why won't you let me shop in your store? Luckily, the security guard just didn't engage him at all, just interposed physically, pointed at the door. A whole bunch of people stopped shopping and just started staring at this guy in blank disbelief. And he finally got the message that nobody was going to play along and just left the store on his own. Yeah. Middle-aged white men represent.
Canada, folks. Canada. We're not actually much better.
Too.
We're not much better.
We're not immune.
To me, populations are bell curves, right? We all know what that bell curve is, where it goes like this and it's got the big hump in the middle. And bell curves, they're not all perfect shapes, right? Some are this way, some are that way, things like that. But it's always non-zero at those edges, or almost always non-zero at those edges, right? So like Canada's their bell curve is slightly shifted to better, I feel. But the difference is when you start looking at the area underneath of the terrible, it's still pretty close. We're just lucky that it's a little better. But we are not a progressive utopia. I lost you, Rob. Uh-oh. I can't hear you again. God damn it. Hold on. We got to I think we're both going to have to restart this now. Let's see. Can you hear me? We're going to start this call again. Let me put up the title card one more time. We're having technical difficulties. Hold on. Okay, testing. Can you hear me now? No, I can't hear you. Let's both leave the call. Let's both leave. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, there's me. Here comes Rob.
We're back, babies.
Oh, good, we're back. There we go. Sorry about this, folks. It's just Discord's being weird. I'm not sure why that's happening.
And we only have a couple stories left, so I guess we'll just cruise on through here because the internet is starting to protest. It seems.
Tiny Soprano says, in California, the entire state is on fire and people are still walking around without masks and going to wine tastings as ash falls from the sky.
This is fine.
Yeah.
Wow. That paints a picture.
It really does. Thank you for that, Dan.
Thank you, long-time listener, first-time caller, Tiny Soprano.
Yeah.
Because that paints a picture.
I like the name too, Tiny Soprano. Is that a reference to The Sopranos, or are you very small and have a high voice? Because Tiny would be a good name for one of the Sopranos. Of course, they would be giant, because that's how those nicknames work.
And built like a bullet, yeah.
Yeah.
Very small with a high voice. There it is. Okay.
Okay.
And presumably either in California or intimately familiar with what's going on in California.
Nice. I like it.
So,
I like the nickname.
On the good news front, Richmond, congratulations. You are absolutely crushing the coronavirus curve. As folks have mentioned in the last couple of weeks here in Vancouver, the curve got away from us, and we ended up now with a larger outbreak than we actually had in April at the peak of our first outbreak, with 267 active cases reported between August 7th and 20th, so over that 2-week period. 267. In Richmond, which is comparably sized, there were 7.
Per 100,000.
7?
Yeah.
267. 7. 267. And if you look back over the entire pandemic, Richmond has had about 110 cases versus Vancouver's 1,100. So even since the beginning, Richmond has 90% fewer cases than Vancouver. And it's not 90% smaller in terms of population. It's absolutely crushing it in terms of the major regions of Greater Vancouver.
Well, this is per 100,000 population as well. So it is per.
Oh, so this is okay.
This is per per 100 capita. How's that described? Yeah. Oh, we lost. Are you still there? You glitched out a bit. Can you hear me? God damn.
Damn.
Oh no, you're still there. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Okay. But I can at least keep the graph up while we redo this. Hold on. Let's both disconnect and reconnect. God damn. Now we don't need to wrap up yet. We're almost there. We're almost there, Rob.
Yeah. I'm coming. I'm coming. There I am.
Yep. Good. All right, we're back. Again, don't know why this is happening. Software these days gets updated all the time, so it can get bugs like this once in a while. Yeah, let's move on to. You know what? Let's go straight to Disorderly Penguin. Shall we do that?
Yeah, sure.
Let's go. We've finally got
in honor of Torrin.
Yeah.
We've got a penguin story for you tonight.
All yours, Rob.
Okay, so a disorderly penguin was found wandering down the middle of the street in English village of Broxtaw, and was picked up by the police and returned to its owner. The penguin had nothing to say in its own defense. There's some pretty great pictures of it if you click through to the link.
It learned never talk to the cops. It knew, because it was part black, but it was fine because it was also part white.
On the edge there somewhere, Joe. On the edge there somewhere.
It's penguins, man.
Penguins. So, and then there's another picture. Apparently, this penguin is connected to some stolen Humboldt penguins that were missing for 2 months before being returned to their owner in January 2019. While not currently endangered, they are listed as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which means they are at immediate or imminent risk of becoming endangered, particularly if walking up the middle of the road in an English village in the dark and boldly confronting the cops in the street.
Come at me,
wandering
bro.
along a village street in Strelly when police picked up the bird on Sunday morning. Pictures courtesy of the Nottinghamshire Police.
I love it. All right, we're having all these technical difficulties. Maybe we should wrap this up real quick with that. The graph is still up. Sorry about that. Let's do that. Let's get our pretty faces back up. There we go, so we can say goodbye. Thanks for putting up with us this week for with the technical difficulties. Hopefully they're gone next week. I'm not sure what that was. It didn't seem to be on any of our ends exactly. I'm going to chalk it up to just constantly updated software.
Discordisms.
Yeah, it happens. It's fine. We got through it. I think we handled it okay. So we'll see you all next week. Again, 7 p.m. Sundays. Tell all your friends. Please spread the word, not the virus. Wear a mask. It's so important these days. If you can't socially distance, to please wear that mask. Torrin's doing well. He had some news recently that I can't remember. Oh, I don't think it's for public consumption yet. Never mind. Maybe we'll mention it next week. It's a thing he's trying to organize. Maybe you've seen it. It doesn't matter. We'll see. I'll talk to you when we're off the air because it's probably private until he actually does it. So we'll see you all next week. Check out viraltransmissions.com. I'll try and get that updated and all that other stuff. Did we end with a crash? Or are you just being quiet? It doesn't matter. All right, we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.